Please take a moment to listen to this disclosure from the Common Ground podcast. The Common Ground podcast is dedicated to exploring commonality among individuals with diverse perspectives. Our guests may present unique worldviews related to health, psychology, and overall well-being. Please note that the Common Ground podcast does not directly promote or endorse any specific ideas, concepts, or actions discussed during our episodes. Listeners are encouraged to approach the information shared with discernment and to consult with their mental and/or physical health providers before making any changes to their health or wellness practices. The views expressed by guests and hosts are their own and do not directly reflect the opinions of the Common Ground podcast. Your well-being is important, and we advocate for informed decision-making. Thanks for listening.
If you chase happiness, it's a moving target, because happiness is a feeling.
Life throws things at us that we can't comprehend when we're young. And because we don't have a filter, we absorb it heavily. And often it's danger and it's fear and it's insecurity and it's pain and it's hurt. So I was traumatized by, bullied and abused psychologically and physically as a boy.
The way we perceive life is our reality. And I get that that's what you're kind of calling your story.
And psychologists will stand up and say, it's a psychic wound. But you can't cut my brain open and show me the wound. It does not exist. I would say you can't choose to put the bag down. The choice is in the realization that the bag isn't there.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast, where stories connect, perspectives collide, and purpose is found in the middle.
Every week, we sit down with unique and inspiring guests that come from all walks of life. People who challenge the status quo, overcome the odds, and live with intentionality.
Whether you're driving to work, on your morning walk, or just looking for that spark to ignite your week, you're in the right place.
Welcome to the Common Ground podcast with your hosts, John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Common Ground podcast. I'm glad you are here with us today. I am John. I am your host, and I have my partner in crime, Sydney, with us. So we are here today, and we have a special guest, Mr. Dallas Collis, and we're super excited to have him. And so before we get started, I always like to, start off things with a little humor. And so just yesterday, I told my girlfriend that she should start to embrace her mistakes. So she gave me a hug.
Oh.
Very good, very good.
Well, again, it is our pleasure to have Mr. Dallas Collis on today. He is the self-proclaimed emotional baggage handler, the Mr. 16-hour coach. He is from Vancouver Island in Canada, and Dallas talks about the year of collapse. He is an author. You can see the book behind him in his thing called The Gift. So check it out. And it looks like he has another one, Live Long. Is that the...
That's the second one.
That's the second one. So he is an author, so check out his books. And please welcome with me Mr. Dallas Collis.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. And I'm going to hand it over to Sydney, and she's going to take it away from
Yeah,
you.
Dallas, we're super excited to have you. So you're in Canada now. I think I missed that part when we spoke the first time. Is that correct?
Yep, I'm Vancouver
Very
Island.
nice. So just tell me what the weather's like out there for us here in the States. John and I are calling in from different states too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day, about 27 Celsius. It's gorgeous.
Very nice. Awesome. So, Dallas, you
75 degrees for you.
35 degrees for us?
75.
75. I was like, I was like, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
No, it's actually about that here. John, just for fun, what's the temperature where you're at?
I don't know the exact temperature, but it is raining, and it is humid.
All right. Well,
so
there you go.
In the 80s, probably.
Okay, very nice. Well, Dallas, John and I were both very intrigued by your story. We love talking with people that have unique perspectives on things. You've written several books, but what are you doing now? Like before leading up to where you are today, what's your project? What are you working on?
I'm working on my next book.
Okay. Are you allowed to tell us what the title or topic of this one is?
Well, I'm hoping it'll be entitled Story Mind.
Okay. That's awesome.
It is all the work I'm doing is about the story.
And we're going to get into that a little bit too, because you have some very unique philosophies on that. So you said it's called the story mind. Did I hear you right? Okay,
Yeah.
and give us just like a nutshell of the preface of that without going too much into the details, so that we can, have our viewers listen to the rest of your story leading up to.
Well, you will find our whole talk today is this book I'm writing.
Well, that's fantastic. Okay. Well, so on that.
So I wonder if I can start somewhere, and that is on common ground.
Amen to that.
I think the name of the podcast is perfect, because that's what we're speaking about in life, is we're all on common ground, though we may see things differently, understand them differently. We're actually all coming in the same place. And so a common ground I like to try and start with is, what do we all want out of life? Every last one of us, I believe, wants the exact same destination in life. Peace, happiness, love, just a quiet, beautiful life. That's what we all want. And I suggest that we are born as that person. But something gets in the way. Why aren't we all happy right now? If it's our natural state, what's blocking us? And what's blocking us is our story.
No,
the beliefs.
It's a beautiful lead up. And I love that you chose peace first instead of happiness. Because one of the things that I coach my clients on is that if you chase happiness, it's a moving target. Because happiness is a feeling that comes based on positive circumstances that you're currently encountering, whereas peace is something that we can train our mind to achieve in any circumstances. So, you mentioned that the Common Ground podcast is what brought you here today. We get to talk about this story theme. So that being said, tell us a little bit about your story leading up to all of these philosophies that you've developed over your years.
Well, I think like every human being on the planet, we start in a base of trauma. And that trauma is fear and insecurity. It may well be from the process of birth itself. Just coming into this world is an unsettling experience for the human species. And there's instant fear and insecurity. And I believe our whole lives come off of that foundation. That all our lives we're seeking to be safe, to be secure, to know we're going to be all right in the next step, in the next minute, in the next day. Everything we do in life surrounds that. And that's where this searching for happiness will come in, because we think we're going to reach something. We're going to get and attain something. So to go back to the beginning, like every human being I've ever met or I've ever heard about, shit happens. Life throws things at us that we can't comprehend when we're young. And because we don't have a filter, we absorb it heavily. And often it's danger and it's fear and it's insecurity and it's pain and it's hurt and it's confusion of understanding. And these things build up into what we will later call emotional baggage. We carry things that happen to us. So I was traumatized by, bullied and abused psychologically and physically as a boy. I came out of my childhood knowing I was not smart enough, not good enough, not capable. I was a failure and a loser. I failed every test in school. I even failed an entire grade. So I was told and showed that I wasn't good enough. And I carried that baggage as a real deep pain, and I was angry. And I come to my first addiction, which I think is everyone's first addiction, all of us. You two both had this addiction. Maybe you have some of it still today. It's called blame. I blamed school. I blamed the church. I blamed Boy Scouts. I blamed, my partner. I'll blame my kids some days. I'll blame the government, blame the economy, blame the weather for a crappy feeling. We live on this, and I call it an addiction because it's a defensive system. It's keeping the pain of reality away from me. If I can blame you for my problem, I don't have the problem. And that's the emotional baggage is the problem we don't want to face. Because that baggage becomes, at a certain age, we begin to identify as that baggage, our story.
Mm-hmm.
We begin to self-identify and say, oh, that's who I am. And so when we meet each other in our lives, we say things like, nice to meet you. Tell me something about yourself. Who do you tell me about? Do you tell me about a human being? Or do you tell me about a story about a human being named John or a human being named Sydney who has a story that they tell me is who they are?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the distinction, because that story is so powerful. We believe it so fully. My story gave me so much pain, I had to reach for a next addiction, alcohol, to try and numb the pain, to try and defend myself from seeing the baggage, from looking inside. That's what all addiction is. So from blame, I go to alcohol. Alcohol is not enough. I need to add more drugs. I find a partner who's also drug addicted, alcoholic, in pain and anger. A perfect match. We enable. And we tend to do that. We find our mirrors out there in the world. We find people that are like us. That's why we attach to them. Because we're comfortable. We see ourselves in them. So that pain gets to a point where the body starts to rebel. Because everything mental comes out physical when it's under pressure. And that's where you have illness, obesity, diabetes, heart disease. In my case, I got real lucky. One morning I woke up with cancer. Best morning of my life. Because it began to make me wake up to my story. And so over a 12-month period, I go through cancer and treatment and surgery. My wife and I split. I lose the house. I lose my business. I lose my family in any way you can imagine being a family. I end up in exactly 12 months to the day later, alone, broken, alcoholic, and suicidal. Because the simple answer at that kind of a train wreck is, I'm done. Let me go. I'm out of here. I don't need this life.
Right.
And that's a pinnacle point is, I don't need what? What life? It was a story, I believe. And I got so lucky. I'm watching a podcast one evening. And the guy on the podcast is talking about consciousness, which I thought is woo-woo, silly, weirdo stuff. But he said one line. He said, show me yesterday. Show me yesterday. This caught me and I went, wait a second. My whole entire life is yesterday. Our history is who we are. Our story. Our identity. Who we see ourselves as. Who I present to the world. It all comes from my yesterdays. If it's that powerful, if that story is so strong it could get me to the edge of suicide, what is it? Where is it? Show me yesterday. John, Sydney, I can't go to the cupboard and pull yesterday out and go, look, here it is. What do you think? I can't do that. So where is it? I can show you my car. I have to go and get in my car and drive to the grocery store right now. I can show you around my room right now. I can't show you yesterday. What happened to it? If it's only something I believe, I let a belief almost kill me. There's no reality in our yesterday. When it's over, when I wake up tomorrow morning, this day is gone. It doesn't exist. I can only remember it.
That makes sense. I understand the concept of what you're saying. I want to, because you said a lot there, so I want to kind of like take time to unpack that with the help of John here. The first thing that you said that struck me, and not to say that I disagree with it, but I'm curious what your deeper perspective on it is, that blame was your first addiction. That was the first piece of that information that you said. And, you know, when you talk about people that have these physiological and psychological and mental chemical addictions to a compound substance, whereas blame is almost this lack of appreciation or lack of accountability to certain things in our lives. How do you define that as an addiction to our viewers, your viewers, the people who read your books?
Well, addiction changes over time. When addiction becomes a chemical habitual addiction, in other words, I want that feeling in my brain that only that drug will give me, it still came from medicating a reason. What was the reason to take the drug in the first place? What was it doing it for you? You weren't chemically addicted yet. You were medicating. You were trying to subdue a voice in your head, a thought in your head, a pain from your past, baggage you're carrying, the weight of the world on your shoulders, weighing you down, hurting you. How do I get away from this pain? Oh, first I blamed, and that worked a little bit. But now I need something stronger. I found alcohol. I went out partying with friends, and what happened? It's called partying. Why? Because we all feel great. We're all laughing and having fun, and we go out and we're dancing, and life is, holy smokes, where'd the pain go? Now that's a habit I want to do again.
So, Dallas, then what separates a coping skill, as you've said, from a addiction? What's the tangible difference there?
Well, I think a tangible difference is probably the possible damage the addiction does. Because we're all just trying to change a mood, a feeling. And that's all addiction is doing. It's taking a medicine. It's taking a pill, whether that pill, like I said, is in the form of running all day on the road, drinking beer, making love, watching porn, gambling. They're all medicines that change a mood. We're altering our feelings. The damage part is when we get hooked on the medication. That's the next step of addiction that we call medical addiction or clinical addiction. But the psychological addiction, the behavior began as, is simply mood changing, mood altering. And we become addicted to altering that mood. So we're fighting back against some internal pain.
I understand what you're saying, and there's a couple things that I want to get into. To me, like the things that you're talking about though are like avoidance. It's like avoiding dealing with issues. And I see how you're kind of relating that. One of my sayings that I've said all the time is that, and one of my life beliefs is that perception is reality. And what I mean by that is that the way we perceive life is our reality. And I get that that's what you're kind of calling your story, right? And I think that when we have the wrong perception of life or we avoid things so that we don't deal with stuff, and I get where you're calling them kind of like addictions, but because it's kind of protecting us from dealing with stuff. But I think that you can do the hard work. Like I think you can like consciously do the hard work to look at your life with the right perspective. I think it takes time. I think it takes energy. I think it takes dedication. But the false story that you're talking about is something that we do easily so that we don't deal with stuff. I think though that there is an opportunity for you to deal with it, you know, and change your perception, which changes your reality, which changes your story.
Yes. But I would take a lot of difference in there. First, I don't think you're trying to avoid something because I don't think you can see your story that you're avoiding. You see the baggage from the story, and there's a difference here. When you say you can do the work, that leads me to think, are you saying you can heal? you can get better.
I can
Because,
yeah.
because if we were to look at 100 years of psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, psychology, talk therapy, it has been an absolute disaster and failure. Complete, utter failure. 100 years of this work. We have more people today on psychoactive drugs than ever before in history. More people in talk therapy, more young people expressing poor mental health than ever before in history. We have not made a step forward. No one has done the work. I think healing is a complete fallacy. You cannot heal. You have to leave the situation. You don't fix. My trauma was 50 years ago. How did it get here today? It got here today because I put it in a bag. I gave it the meaning. I created the pain of the trauma, and I carried it with me for 50 years. I made it my friend. I took care of it. I loved it. I said that was part of me. And psychologists will stand up and say it's a psychic wound. But you can't cut my brain open and show me the wound. It does not exist. It is only a belief that I carried. That's all it is. It is not the trauma event that happened 50 years ago. That was a reality at that time and space. It is not today. Only I could bring it. Therefore, I'm responsible for it. I cannot heal that trauma ever because it took place 50 years ago. I can't change the past. So I don't heal trauma. I leave it. I put the bag down at the curb and the garbage man takes it away. I no longer look in the bag because I no longer own the bag because I'm not responsible for it. As soon as I can make that break, it disappears. Trauma can only be held by me. I'm the only one who can be responsible for it. No one else on the planet can. That's the reality.
You did say one thing. You did say one thing that really deeply resonates with me. And because I talk to people a lot about this concept of extreme ownership, and that's that when you're dealing with physical illness or ailments, there are blood cell counts or CAT scans or MRIs or something that physically indicates that this is the illness and here's how we heal that illness, if assuming that there's a cure for it. Whereas with mental illness, like you said, it's not something that we can physically, tangibly touch. It's something that was an experience that became part of our life that some people allow to be warped into part of their identity. So when you are dealing with trauma, like you said, you can choose to carry that baggage around, or you can choose to throw the baggage out. One thing that I'm not sure if I'm understanding and that I would love to understand is this concept that our stories that they're not necessarily a part of who we are. The gap that I'm trying to bridge here is where do our life experiences shape us into who we are today without allowing our trauma to define us?
Well, as soon as you reach the moment where you can put the bag down, you have taken total responsibility. At that moment, your mind sees the story you just I walked with for 50 years was a lie. It was a lie because when I put it down, it vanished. It was never there. I had to believe it was there. So the story isn't telling me the truth. I'm only believing a false narrative that came from a moment in time. People carry moment all their life. People carry one moment, their entire life with them, and use blame and use other addictions to try and keep the pain of that moment away, but keeping it at the same time. I would say you can't choose to put the bag down. The choice is in the realization that the bag isn't there. It doesn't exist. It's only a mental projection in yourself. And this is why we've had 100 years of personal development alongside of psychological progress in medicine. What has personal development done for 100 years? Look at Tony Robbins as the poster child, because he's 50 years, he's been at the top of the game, right? 100 years of personal development, 250,000 books, $500 billion spent in personal development. What are we doing? We're trying to change our story through discipline, goals, dreams, structure, coping mechanisms. This is all we're doing. We have the foundation of a house that is the story we believe. And we are constantly painting the walls, putting in new windows, buying new appliances, finding something to add that's going to fix the foundation. It doesn't. The foundation stays.
So let me say this. So are you saying that basically we are a complete human being, and that the baggage that we carry basically takes away from that, and as soon as we release it, we're the complete person?
Yes.
That basically
Yes.
is what I believe you're saying, right?
Fundamentally, yes.
So, and I don't mean this, please don't take this the wrong way. So why write books?
Oh, because I still live in this physical world. I'm still interacting with other people. That's still a part of life. It's how we interact with other people. It's how we take the determination of what you mean to me. Have you ever been disappointed by someone, John?
Of course.
How? How is it possible?
How is it possible they didn't live up to the expectations that I had set for them to live up to?
There you go. You can't be disappointed. You set the expectation. You're the one who appointed the person in the first place. No one can disappoint the person who appointed them. You disappointed yourself.
What would you have responded to if he had said that that individual didn't live up to mutual agreements that we had set as a couple or in our relationship?
Doesn't matter. You're imposing yourself on them.
But if they had agreed to it, how is that an imposition?
That's their business to agree or disagree. How you receive it is your responsibility. That is your power. That is the control of your life.
So then her only...
Oh, she broke my heart. She broke my heart. She left me. How could she break my heart
unless I gave her the power to her? So I understand the principle.
We are constantly externalizing our life and saying everything is out there. When I get there, when I see this, when I respond to this, when I achieve this, when I possess something, when I buy this, when I get to the next grade, when I graduate, everything is external. And the reality is we cannot ever reach the external. That's why there's another goal.
I'm looking at this objectively, right? So I'm not saying this about you. I'm inquiring if we're talking about this belief as a concept and not about Dallas yourself, right? How do we then take this idea that we have the power to not let certain emotions affect us and only positive experiences to affect us? Because like that just sounds like one extreme disassociation from reality from an outside perspective, and two, it sounds like borderline narcissism. So where is that line drawn?
Well, decide what is reality. John said earlier, his perception creates his reality. And I fundamentally agree. We experience stuff in the world every day from the minute we get out of bed. And every experience, we give it a meaning ourselves, because nothing in life comes with a meaning. You create the meaning by your perception. That meaning creates a feeling in you. So you are already in total control of your reality. So all we're discussing is here, what is the reality you're choosing? You're not disassociating from reality. You're dissociating from your chosen creation.
Does that only apply when we as individuals experience trauma? What if we are the ones that incite that trauma onto somebody else, be it intentional or unintentional? So where does that line become? Well, like who's the moral hierarchy of this concept of that we are able to reevaluate or reshape our experiences emotionally and psychologically and just in our relationship? So like if somebody does something wrong and decides, well, I now am reinstating my power to say that this is no longer what's best for me. Now we've done wrong to somebody else. Where does moral hierarchy come into this concept?
Well, for me, it doesn't, because moral hierarchy is the judgment.
Okay.
That's simply a judgment. It's a judgment. And a judgment is an external opinion. I can only judge you. I can only be responsible for me. So there is no moral judgment. That's the creation of churches, of laws, of order, of
Okay, so
rule, all these
does
things.
moral
These are
because
external creations.
everybody has some sort of moral
I have no
hierarchy because there
concern
has
for
to be
them
some sort of
because
societal line. So religion assigns just moral hierarchy as a generalization, as a societal concept. Where does that come into play in this concept that I am my own God?
do you have the concept that you are your own God?
Well, no, that's what you said. You said that there is no moral hierarchy, which means that anything that you dictate is what's best for your life would be of moral hierarchy in any given interaction, correct?
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to get at is like, so if we are all our own gods, then whose moral hierarchy determines what is best for a societal concept if it is not an individual interaction?
Our stories do. Look around the world right now, at any time in history, and you will see the collective story being played out. What do you see when you look around the world today? Where does your focus go? I guarantee it goes to war, poverty. It goes to all these things associated with what? With fear and insecurity. The individual story is the collective story. If I'm the leader of a country and I can convince my people that our neighbors there don't like us, in fact, they want to kill us, they hate us, and I can get you to believe this story so fully, you will pick up a gun and go to war and kill your brothers and sisters. We have killed 100 million of them in the past 100 years. So where is any moral hierarchy at play? It's a fantasy in a story we believe. It doesn't exist. We wouldn't be slaughtering each other if there was any moral authority or any truth to that, because the story is not true.
That seems like a slight contradiction, because if we were all robots, that we were our own gods, then either we would all align in our moral compass, or we would all have completely separate moral compass, and the world would not exist as constructively as we know it to exist.
Because we all live the same story.
What does that mean?
There is only one story. There is only one story.
What is that?
Tell me a story. Tell me a story that is different from any other story. Every human being on the planet has the same story. It may look different. It may sound different. They may experience different things, but they are all doing what? They come into this world. They are taught to experience, and other people write them a story. You don't even write your own story.
So there's no free will. There's no
by
concept of free will.
teachers, by parents,
So
by
what
bosses.
individual stories have no bearing if we all experience the same emotions and decide to do the exact same things with all of the choices that we have, or we have no free will and all of us experience the same story because it's just written differently?
Yes, absolutely.
Which? I said two different things.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch the two different things.
Okay, so we either all have the same story and our emotions dictate how we handle that story, and there's no concept of free will, or we do have free will and it was like a fill in the blank kind of question. Like, so my question really is, do we or do we not then have free will if we all have the exact same story?
Well, I think if you think free will is a just positive, negative, yes or no, then I have no idea. I don't think there is a absolute you do have or don't have, because in your story, in what you believe, you probably have no free will because you believe it. This is why personal development and psychology hasn't worked at changing your individual story, because you believe it's true. Therefore, you don't have much will to change it. You can try through discipline and coping mechanisms and tools, and that's what we do every day. So we can do what? Get through life, handle the situation. So there's very little free will, but outside of your story, total free will, because you are something completely different.
So if we all have the same story, if this is all true, what is the purpose of life then?
Well, we said it at the beginning, John, and we agreed to it at the beginning. What does everyone want? A peaceful, loving, beautiful heart, happiness. That's all we want. That's all any human being wants. You got 8 billion people in the world all seeking a happy place to live, trying to find that peace and happiness. So let's back it up to the beginning. Everybody, look into the face of a newborn baby. What do you see? I'd suggest every person alive who looks into the face of a newborn baby sees the exact same thing. They see love and beauty and happiness. Pre-story. The baby doesn't have a name, no experience, nothing to go through, no problems, no baggage, no worries, no insecurities, no regrets, nothing. They are just a beautiful human life right there. My mother died 4 months ago now. 2 hours before her death, I looked into her face. What did I see? I saw beauty. I saw love. And my heart was filled with happiness, not regret, not fear, because I could see that life. In between this birth and this death, we fill it with a drama. It is the story, this belief systems that we grab onto, that we are taught. And they stem from our internal fear and insecurity. But when you look past this baggage, go ahead.
So you're talking about like peace and happiness. So what do you say about the people who are willing to give their lives for a greatest purpose? Like I think that there's two driving forces. I think either you live a life that you aren't going to be worried about peace and happiness because the purpose of your life is key, or if you don't have that purpose, you look for peace and happiness because that's the other thing that if we don't have purpose and we look for peace and happiness, they're the two ways I think we live life. So what do you say to the person who isn't looking for peace and happiness? They're looking at purpose. They're looking that I'm here for a greater purpose. For we have martyrs who give their own lives. They're not looking for peace and happiness. They've died for a cause that they believe in.
They die for a story they believe in. I agree. They do it every day. We've been doing it for thousands of years. Look at all wars. People are dying for a belief they believe in, for a cause they believe in. Freedom, democracy. I believe so deeply I'll go to war and kill and die for my country, for my flag. Yes, I agree. They're believing in a story.
Where does the reality change between... So, going back, you said that we all have the same story. I'm going to set this to the side for a second. Going into this realm of how psychology has failed us for 100 years, I also don't disagree, just to preface this. However, I think that it's not so much just the principle of psychology so much as it is human accountability for their actions. Because as I had said earlier, I strongly believe that we have the option to take extreme, not just ownership, but extreme ownership, which is a book written by a U.S. Navy SEAL, former Navy SEAL. And I execute a lot of those philosophies in my own life. Where in this could I have done better? How could I have changed or influenced the outcome for the benefit of others in this situation with me? But what I'm hearing you say is that we had zero influence over our own stories, and we only have ownership over dismissing the experiences we've had entirely to find our identities as people. So the question is twofold. One, where does accountability come into modern day psychology? And where do people have to, I guess, dive into that piece of themselves? And then actually answer that one first, because that's loaded. I'll save my second one.
I'd like you to flesh out, what does accountability in today's psychology mean? I don't even know what that means.
Well, so that, and I agree. I think that if you look at it through the realm of psychology, that gets pretty muddy, because psychology has arguably the ability to pass the ball, where you were a victim of these circumstances in some cases. Yeah. Okay. In my case, I was a child. I had no influence or authority of the things that happened to me while very much under the reign of my parents as a child. However, the idea that this was something that I could have changed that happened to me that ultimately affected me in no way, shape, or form to be who I am today, I don't know if I agree with. And I'm just trying to see if I'm hearing you correctly in that.
From any event earlier in your life, you have carried a belief in that event. Wouldn't you agree?
When you say belief in that event, do you mean belief emotionally or belief that that event was a real event that happened?
Oh,
just
no.
to define.
Yeah, the event is real. There is no question if whatever happened, happened. No question at all. None. And you are not responsible for the event. You have no responsibility for that at all. As soon as that event is over, your psychology, whether you are conscious or not of it happening, is creating meaning in that event, is embedding a part of a story about you in that event. What happened to me? This happened to me. These people did this to me. That is creating the story that then you become responsible for the story. It becomes a part of you. So that's the separation right there. The event happened, it's real. You have no responsibility for it. You are now responsibility for you who carries that story. Now, until it can be rationally understood, the story just is a bag over your shoulder you walk along with. It's just there, right? The 10-year-old boy in Somalia, he sees his whole family executed in front of him. 4 brothers, 3 sisters, mother, father, hacked to death with machetes. He's a 10-year-old boy. He then is taken by the child soldiers. He becomes a child soldier. Imagine that traumatic event. 4 years later, a missionary gets a hold of this kid and gets him to England. In England, he's put in school. He goes to school. He becomes a doctor. He's married, has 3 children and a house, and is living this wonderful life. How could that be possible? And another person will have a spanking when they're young and be traumatized by it and carry the pain against their mother or their father for 50 years and hate them and be angry at them. This is this incredible experience of detaching that is absolutely healthy.
Is it detachment?
We talk about emotional detachment, but what is the reality? We are creating ourselves a scene in a story that we say is reality. And then we say, if you disassociate and detach from it, you're faking it. What if the story itself has been faked in you? Because your reading of it. 70% of your life right now, Sydney, you can't remember. It's impossible. Tell me what you had for breakfast on June 12th, 2012.
Sure. It's because our brain attaches to core memories. There's a way that our brain processes what is valid information and what is invalid information.
Okay, and I would completely argue that that's not true. The reality is, if you had that breakfast and you said to yourself consciously, that was the best breakfast I ever had in my life. What an amazing breakfast. And all day long, you talked about the breakfast out loud and in your head about how great it was. And you did that for 30 days. Right now, you could tell me everything about that breakfast. I guarantee it.
Because my brain would have processed it as valid information.
Because you would have set it into memory so strongly that you can sit down at your theater and look at your movie and go, yep, I remember that breakfast perfectly.
So there are things that have happened in my life that I haven't told a soul about, that I will take with me to my grave, that I can recall perfect photographic memory. What do you say to those experiences?
You've replayed that movie in your mind 1,000,000 times. Doesn't have to be out loud.
What then makes the difference between
being aware? You're not aware of it. You're not aware of it. I am so angry and upset. I hate myself. I hated what happened to me as a kid. I'm angry a lot of the time. I get up in the morning, I pour myself a mug of coffee, I drop the mug on the floor. Smash! That voice in my head goes, what? You dummy! You idiot! You're never careful. You're always screwing up. That voice is that memory. That movie suddenly jumps to life. I call it the ego deceiver. Deceiving you to keep you in your story. To say, see, it's true. That is you. Now, if I'm aware, if I'm consciously aware, I can be aware of a thought arising in my head. Here comes a thought. You're a dummy. Oh, that's just a silly thought because I'm aware of it. I can look at the thought separate from me and know the thought is not me. It's just a story I believe. And what happens? The thought vanishes. It has no power because I didn't attach to it. I detached from the story right there. And if I had attached to it, oh my God, that's me. I'm such a dummy. Yep, that's just like me. And we've all said these things to ourselves. That's attaching to a piece of the story. That this deceptive part of our being is feeding us all the time. And we call it memory.
Can two things be true at once?
Yes.
Then why is it that that cannot be our reality in an unhealed state, and that it can be our reality when we have released that baggage?
Because they're both true to you in that moment, just as John said earlier about perception.
And this goes back to the concept of moral hierarchy, and just so like we can't tell anybody. We can't tell anybody that their truth is not true, is what you're saying. Because if we are not the moral hierarchy of their life, then they can have those two things be true at different stages of their life. Which
absolutely
potentially invalidates the entire point of this conversation.
No, it validates it by putting that one side of the reality is a story you believe. That is the box it is in. See, I would separate thinking from thought. They have nothing to do with each other. Thinking is your brain. Thinking is skill. It's things you've learned. You know how to sit down and turn on that computer, what buttons to push, how to put on the headphones, how to talk. These are all stuff we have learned and we store in our brains as actual information that we possess. Thoughts arise from beliefs in a story. That's why they just come up in your head without you asking for them. That's the person who lies down at night to go to sleep, and all of a sudden they've got these thoughts running through their head. Oh, anxiety, regret, fear.
Have you ever heard of the term meta-thought?
Yes.
What is the definition of meta-thought?
Oh, I don't know if you call it definition because I don't have that.
No, it's okay. So meta-thought means thinking about your thinking. So it's thought and thinking existing together in a definition. Right. And as you were saying that, I couldn't help but have it come to my mind. I was like, okay, so they're separate, but the definition of meta-thought is thinking about your thinking.
Right, but we got to understand our brain is completely entangled.
Right.
We don't have this separate box to put everything in. This is why we can't find where are you hurt psychologically, because it's an entanglement of thoughts and feelings, of emotion, of memory. All these things are entangled, and that's what makes it so difficult. That's what makes the story so real, because you can not only have the thought, but that can trigger what? Thinking. And then you can think about the thought.
And I think that
you can't thought about thinking, though. There's no way to thought about thinking, but you can think about your thoughting. That's why I'll say, do you have thoughts or do you have thinks? You do thinks. You don't do.
John, we've entangled grammatical error into this realm of connection between heart and mind and moral hierarchy, but you were going to say something. Go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, no, I think this is a good point to kind of wrap up this discussion for this episode. First of all, I want to say this has been a great episode. I've enjoyed it. And I'm glad that, we haven't agreed on everything, because like
No.
this show is called The Common Ground because we can come together, and even though we have different points of view and different views on how life lives, we can come together and be respectful. We can come together and dialogue and have a conversation. And I hope that our audience today was able to uh, open their mind and think about what was said, and make their own decisions, and come, because that's the whole point. The whole point of
Yeah.
conversation is, and an open conversation is, to the ability to hear somebody out, take it in, and say, do I agree with it? Do I not agree with it? And I hope that today that our audience got to do some of that. And
Yeah.
and hopefully this is an example on how we can have conversations when we don't always agree with somebody. So I want to thank you. I really, I respect your point of view. I think we agree on some aspects. I think we disagree on other aspects. I do
Yep.
want to just say that, like, I know that psychologists came under a lot of heat on this episode, and just want to say that I do think that there is some good, and I think I kind of agree with you.
There is.
I think therapies that automatically promote drugs or pills to deal with issues, I think you definitely need to question your therapist, and see if there was a way not to do it. Sometimes I think it might be required, but, and so I don't want anybody just hearing this conversation and be like, I should stop taking my pills, you know? Um,
No.
don't do that.
No.
But maybe question, ask if, because I think doing the accountability, looking at things, seeing what is real, what isn't real, um, it is important.
Key takeaways.
Wrap this up. We do a segment called Key Takeaways, and that's kind of where I'm leaning with my key takeaway, is that, you know, take the time to think about, even as I said, perception's reality. Is my perception right? What am I perceiving? Is it biased on my previous thoughts? Am I looking at things from a bias? Because we always look at things from a biased view. Um, how is my biased view affecting my perception of my reality? Um, and I think that's a good place to start out. And just when we start to do that, I think we can start to say, okay, is this really what's going on? And I think that's kind of some of the crust that's we were talking about in different ways. Is is the pain that I feel legit? Is the pain that I'm projecting legit? And start asking questions, and maybe we can change our perception, and maybe we can change our reality by doing, really reflecting and being totally honest with ourselves. I do think there's different levels, and I didn't get into this, where I believe consciously, like, you consciously say to me, oh, did I have a good day? Yeah. But then if I step back and I go down deeper level, I'll be like, maybe it wasn't a great day. And then if I go really, really down deeper, I'm like, I'm really pissed off about today. But because we have different layers of our consciousness. And I think that what you're talking about with the story level is that we stay on that top level of consciousness where we tell ourselves the non-truth. Because I think we lie to ourselves all the time. And I think
Yeah.
that we can get down to that deeper level where we say, you know what, I'm really lying to myself. I'm not happy. I'm not okay. I'm not satisfied in this relationship. I'm not, satisfied doing what I'm doing on a normal hour. So take that time, dig deep. This was a long takeaway, so I'm going to end there with it, and let Sydney go and give her takeaway. But that's kind of where I'm coming from this conversation with.
I appreciate you saying that. I think that it's really crucial. And my key takeaway is it's in a similar breath of that. I think that it's really important, even though this is a belief that I've held for a long time, to reiterate it to self. Dallas used the example of when you introduce yourself to me or to someone, that you start telling a story about your past in a lot of ways. And it's really important to know that we are not our experiences only, that our experiences, from my perspective, can shape us to be who we are today. But like, we do not have to identify by the wounds that have hurt us in the past. And that's just really important for people to remind themselves of, because we've all been through a lot of life, and those things do not define who you are. So that was really crucial. Dallas, if the radio had gone quiet during our episode up until this point, and you could leave our viewers with one takeaway, what would you want them to know from this episode here today?
To question your memories. What if? I have 5 siblings. When we get together, stories will come up from our past, and all of us will have a different memory of the same event. And that's where I say, what if your memory's wrong? What if that's baggage you're carrying that you don't need to carry?
Awesome. And
Fair enough.
yeah, we love our key takeaways, and this is the point in the show where I ask the audience who's been listening, we want to hear what your takeaway was from this episode. So whatever platform you're listening onto it, please comment and please let us know what your takeaway from this episode was. It helps us. It gives us feedback on what what went on today. So we appreciate that.
The final 5.
We're going to move on to our final segment, which is the final 5 questions. And the first question for Dallas is, who was your hero? Who is your hero and why?
Muhammad Ali. Wouldn't miss a beat on that. Muhammad Ali was my hero. Why? Because he stood up and said the most, what we would call braggadocious behavior, boastful, in a sea of people who were stunned by what he did and said. And it was everything I wanted, to have the strength to stand up, regardless of what anybody else thought. So instantly, that was a heroic figure that I looked toward, you know?
There you go. That's a good answer. A good reason, I should say. I like your reasoning behind it. All right, question number 2 for you is, what is the most effective way to harness your mind's power?
Awareness. Be aware of what you're thinking about, of what your thoughts are arising. It's I say this story all the time. We were all given the secret to life in grade 1, the first day of grade 1. What happened to all of us? The teacher walked to the front of the class and went, "Attention, class, attention." And then they took roll call. John, present. Sydney, present. What were we just taught? If you're in attention and you're present, you can't be in your story because you're right here in reality. What a fabulous secret we were given, and we didn't grasp it. The teacher didn't know it was true, but that's a secret. If you do it right now, you're always present. You're not in a story worrying or anxious about tomorrow. You're present because you're in
We're
attention.
definitely present right here. So the next question is, what is one book or quote or saying that you live by, and why?
I don't have one. I, probably have over the years, but I am so detached from an outside idea. I'm trying to constantly just be here, present and aware, and not let the outside world do what it does, throw us around. And I find incredible peace and happiness being present and aware.
Hey,
I know that's
it's
not
an
much
answer.
of an answer, but it's where I am.
It will be the only answer like that we get on this show, and John and I are okay with that. All right. Next question for you is, what is one practical technique that someone can use to strengthen their mental resilience, maybe early on in this journey?
What I used early on was sticky notes. There's one on my TV still right behind me here, and it says, "Get off your ass." And for me, it was associating the TV is looking at me and saying, "I see you sitting there being lazy, doing nothing. Get up." I put a sticky note on my fridge. and it says, "What's going into your mouth?" It's the fridge saying to me, think about it, be in attention before you eat, because I won't eat so much crap if I'm aware. So I had sticky notes all over the house that were doing one thing, keeping me awake, not letting me daydream in habit and routine that led me into decline, but to stay present again, here, in attention.
I do love the sticky.
So sticky notes work great.
The only problem with the sticky notes is don't sit on a sticky note that says "get off your ass," because you'll never see it.
Yes, there you go.
You already did your dad joke of the day, John.
You only get one.
This one.
And the final question is, if you could sit down and have a beer and a conversation with somebody living or dead, who would it be and why?
Jesus Christ.
That's an interesting answer.
No doubt. No doubt. Because look at the effect. Look at the effect of that story. I would want to know what he thought of that story. I used to have a drinking buddy. We drank every day for 15 years. He ended up going to the streets and fentanyl and being one of those zombies we've all seen on the news on the street corner. I met him in a coffee shop just 8 months ago, and he's completely normal. He's fine. He's happy and healthy. What happened? He found Christ. He said he was saved. He was saved by a new and better story. I would want to see what Christ said about story. And it's
Man, that's a whole nother podcast, John.
That is.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Good answer, though. I like it.
So, Dallas, if somebody wants to follow you, get a hold of you, how can they find you?
Dallas Collis at gmail.com.
Easy.
Yeah, and in the world we live in, if you've got my name on the screen, you can't hide anymore.
That's the truth.
We're all pretty easy to find.
Well, it has been our pleasure today. We thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Remember,
absolutely.
Yeah. Remember, when we take the time to hear someone's story, it gives us the opportunity to find common ground. Thank you, Dallas, for being our guest today. For Sydney and myself, it has been our pleasure to be your host, and you have been listening to the Common Ground Podcast. Good night, and God bless.
And that's it for today's episode of the Common Ground Podcast. We hope you're leaving with a little more perspective, a little more purpose, and a whole lot more inspiration.
So thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it. Thank you to our special guest.
If today's conversation moved you, encouraged you, or challenged you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, rate it, leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more people who need to find their own common ground.
So for John Fletcher and Sydney Curtin,
we'll see you right here next week, same time, same place on the Common Ground Podcast. Make it a great week.